Uh, Good evening, Corrigan. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, Mark. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Thank you. I'd like to. I just want to kick us off with a question. Have a little think about it. The answer might seem obvious. The answer may be obvious. I don't know. How many senses do you have right now? How many senses do you enjoy having? What's your kind of the range of your senses? How many senses do you have?
Like like the five senses, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Five? It's the you're going with the five, yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's, sight, sound,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
touch,
yeah.
taste.
Taste, yes.
Sight, sound, touch, taste. What the fuck's the
Smell.
other one? Smell, right. Yes. Yes,
There we
that's the
go.
guy. That's the one.
Yeah. That's the received wisdom. I mean, there are more. Obviously, there's your sense of spatial awareness. That's one of your senses. Would you? Are you
I
happy
don't
with
have
that?
that one.
Oh,
So I'm not
do you know?
familiar.
Me either. Actually, I am a frequent and committed head hitter, and I fucking hate it, man. There
Oh
is
no.
nothing more guaranteed to hit my rage button as quickly as banging myself on the head, standing up too quickly, hitting my head, and just immediate fucking Hulk out. I hate it. I
I'm
guess my
short, so I don't hit my head on anything, but it's my hip for me. Hitting my hip on shit sends me into an instant rage, and I do it
fury.
nearly
Yes.
every day.
I guess. I guess my question is: are you happy with that suite of senses that we've just spoken about? That five senses. Are you happy with that? Do you wish there were more? Do you wish there were less?
I mean, I could probably do with fewer, to be honest with you.
Okay. Too
I
much
mean,
sensation. Too much input.
yeah, or maybe like a dulling of the ones that I have. Listen, I mean, as everyone knows, I have ADHD, so sensory overload is like a
Mm,
common problem
mm,
for me. So
mm.
I don't think I've ever wished, hey, let's have more sensory input because I'm already always overwhelmed.
I see. Well, would it? I mean, it probably wouldn't shock you, but there are plenty of people who thought, let's fuck it. Let's do some more senses. Let's make some more senses.
Okay,
Let's take the five that we already have as a good start.
sure.
Let's consider those as a nice kind of kickoff. But for some people, the touch, the smell, the sight, all of those just aren't enough.
Hmm.
And there are plenty of
Okay.
people out there, artists among them, boffins among them, people with, quirks and irregularities in their own senses who tinker is the best way I can think of
Okay.
putting it, who just fuck about under the hood with the goal of generating brand new ways for us as people to enjoy sensory input from the world around us. And I love this.
Oh boy, I can't even like begin to imagine what that would mean. So I'm kind of excited here.
I mean, there's loads to talk about here. It's cool as fuck. I mean, the first this for me, this begins with a journey. I mean, going back in the mid 2011s, right, mid 2010s, that
Yeah,
decade,
the mid
that well-known decade, the
2011s.
mid 2011s, the 2010s.
Okay.
Loads of experiments on rats with a view to seeing how we can get them to view light of a different spectrum. Right, rats.
Mm,
If you whack an electrode in a rat's the visual centers of a rat's brain, and a sensor which can perceive infrared light. That rat can learn to associate it with a reward-based task within about 30, 40 days, right? You
mhm.
shine infrared light from a food source or a water source, the rat will pick up the infrared light on its sensor, on its skull,
Okay.
leading to a wire down in its brain, and it will essentially see that infrared light.
Huh.
But here's the thing: one works great, but in that same experiment, the same rat with an infrared sensor on its skull had an extra three infrared sensors in its brain in different places to give it 360-degree infrared perception.
So
And
we're talking
within
about like some kind of implant. Is that what's happening here? They're putting something
exactly
in
this,
its brain. Okay.
exactly this, an implant on the top of its skull with an electrode in its visual cortex, allowing it to quote unquote see infrared. And the more sensors they add, the quicker the rat gets used to using them. Within 4 days, it adapted to using this 360-degree infrared ability to to respond and to assimilate almost this new sense of being able to see infrared light. And critically, right, that new sense doesn't negatively affect the existing ones in the rat, doesn't fuck up its hearing, doesn't lead to it having like a palsy or inability to walk. The rat is cool as fuck, only now it's a cyborg rat.
Extra perception.
An extra perception.
Huh.
Works in rats. Works in people.
Okay.
I'm going to talk to you about I guess I would comfortably call this guy an artist, right? A guy by the name of Neil Harbison. Now, this guy is alive right now. He was born in the 80s and since birth was profoundly colorblind. Okay. Like not just, you get some people with varying degrees of colorblindness. Neil Harbison was completely colorblind.
So what is birth. That? Is that like seeing in like grayscale? What would it mean?
Exactly that. Exactly that.
Wow.
He says that to him, TV is still black and white.
Wow.
The name of his colorblindness was total achromatopsia.
You are leaning so hard into the R's day. It's not a complaint. I need to say that observation out loud.
Total
anyone who's watching this is like, she just keeps smiling. It's making me laugh. Anyways,
so born in Ireland, grew up in Catalonia. It became his life's work, his obsession to use technology to add color to his world. Okay. In university, he studies experimental music and sound design, and as part of his thesis, builds an apparatus which was an antenna attached to a computer, which he would wear headphones with, and that would convert color signals via this camera into sound. Okay.
So like a synesthesia that's like manufactured.
Beautiful. Almost, it sounds as though it's a kind of a man-made,
an engineered synesthesia.
Yes. However, it's totally different. And over the course of his study, his research, he refined this design, this apparatus, not only to shrink the apparatus down, but to implant it into his skull. Okay.
Okay.
Harbison walks around literally with an antenna emerging from the front of his head, with a camera on the end of it, which converts color information into sound, which he quote unquote hears by means of a vibrating chip within his bone, his skull bone, right? A brand new condition which has been called sonochromatopsia. He hears color, a brand new sense. Every color corresponds with a different sound. It's a uniform experience whereby different colors, and there's a fascinating TED talk where he holds different colors up to his antenna, and you hear the noise that each color makes inside his head. It's fascinating stuff.
This is fascinating and very confusing, because that also feels to me like sensory overload and like almost like having a constant like tinnitus. Like, doesn't that, so he's walking around in his day-to-day life, seeing things that are all in color.
Yes.
Meanwhile, this antenna is basically making his skull hum.
It's bone induction. And there are commercial appliances which use inner ear induction to generate sound. But he's taken it, being an artist, he's taken it to place of, he calls himself, let me just get this right. Firstly, he is a legally recognized cyborg. Okay.
I love that as a designation of things. Set on his driver's license, blood donor, cyborg.
Well, it is. There was a long and protracted battle to allow the British Passport Agency to recognize his antenna in his passport photograph. Ergo, he is a legally recognized cyborg. He calls himself an advocate for trans species rights. He takes the cyborg bit quite seriously, right? But there are others up to shit like this, man. It isn't just for medical technology. It isn't just in the kind of, the experimental community. there are lots of, people who consider themselves body hackers.
Yeah.
Have you heard of these guys inserting magnets into their fingers?
No, I don't think so.
This is, see, I used to be quite hung up on this idea.
Not surprising.
You'll be shocked to hear. Magnetic implantation, okay? Quite a well-proven procedure by now, where body hackers will insert medically treated earth magnets under their fingertips, under the skin of their fingertips, which not only gives them the ability to pick up light objects made of metal just with their fingertips, meow, like an Aldi Magneto. It also reportedly gives you the ability to sense magnetic fields through your fingertips, because the magnets will interact with the magnetic hum of, for example, an engine or a power cable or any kind of electric device which generates a magnetic field. You will be able to sense this using the magnetic implants within your fingers. For all intents and purposes, a brand new sense.
Does any of this sound good to you? Because to me, all of this sounds like misery. Every single thing you have described to me sounds fucking miserable. Like, this is awful, and I hate everything about it.
The bullshit about, hey, transhumanism, I'm a cyborg, that bores the fuck out of me, right? That just makes me think these guys would be fucking murder to have a night out with. Fuck off.
Yeah, it's just like cosplay doofusness. That part,
exactly
whatever,
this, exactly this. But I have long loved this notion of the body as a canvas, right? I've long loved this notion of the body as being, it's yours, mate. Do whatever the fuck you want with it. And if you can get some extra mileage out of it, if you can overclock it by whacking magnets in your fucking fingers or plug in a camera into the back of your skull, crack on. Who knows? I'm all about insight into the human condition, and if that's how you seek your insight out, there's a body artist.
Hold on. Before you go on to that, but I mean personally, the idea of this magnet thing in your own fingers.
Yes.
Does that sound like a thing you could live with?
Well, a couple of things. Firstly, the lifespan of these things is limited. It tends to wear off after a few years, right? Okay. So when they're in, they're not permanent. Just, pop them out. And general anesthetic, pop them out. But hey, it's not for me. I'm happy with the 5 that I've got. But I love that someone has to go that far. I enjoy that there are people out there fucking doing it.
Okay.
I will always, no matter how fucking ridiculous it might seem at first glance, I will always have time and an ear and an interested eye for people who want to do this shit.
Right.
To go back to the wonderful Genova Rain, right, who is a body mod enthusiast from the UK. She's not from the UK, sorry, but resides in the UK. She's gone as far as advertising a service whereby she will implant NFC, so near field communication chips, subdermally, that you can upload maybe your travel card information to. So as you're walking past the turnstile, simply wave your hand over the reader and the gate will open. You can upload business card information into a chip in your arm, so you can just tap someone's phone to your arm and they'll get your contacts. That's cool as fuck.
All of this, one of the things that you'll notice, like, this smile on my face about too.
Yeah.
What I love about this is it so flies in the face of my evangelical college.
I know
life.
it does. I know it does.
You know exactly what I'm thinking with this, because that shit is Mark of the Beast shit right there.
Yes, very much
that's
so.
The thing you're supposed to be terrified of, is like they're going to embed you with barcodes or something like that, and you'll be able to pay for your groceries by swiping your hand or things like that. We were warned about that stuff, and all of this body mod stuff too. Like, I remember in my Christian worldview class and stuff like that in college, watching stuff about people getting extreme body modifications, and that we were supposed to think critically about it, of course, not necessarily straight condemn it, but you were kind of supposed to come to the conclusion that you shouldn't do that. So that
Genova, this girl who I've just spoken about, she, for the princely sum of 145 quid, the microchip insertion takes less than 10 seconds using a syringe. It's healed within 2 to 3 days, and you can jump on the tube by waving your fucking hand over the sensor. And well, 145 quid and your eternal soul, I guess, is the cost.
Pretty much, yeah. I do like that. I mean, I wouldn't do it, but I do like that.
It's cool as fuck. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I can easily separate the cyber goth fucking side of it.
Yeah.
To end, there's also plenty of people who've taught themselves echolocation. You know this?
Yes, I find that extremely fascinating. I watched like a 2020 or something like that, probably a decade ago, about this he was a teenager, black teenager here, who was blind, and he had taught himself echolocation, and he could like shoot hoops. He could do all kinds of things just by sort of clicking and listening and managing to, you know, create some sort of weird visual thing via echolocation. I thought,
there's a guy by the name of Daniel Kish, works with a non-profit organization called Access for the Blind. You know, he does lots of work with blind teenagers, you know, outward bound kind of work, wilderness work, hiking, mountaineering, and so on, and is a shit hot echolocator. And teaches that to other blind youths. Now, I think I've seen the same guy that you've seen. And
I think this was probably at that point, this was the most famous example of this.
Yeah, and my response was, does it really work, or is it something this guy is telling himself?
Sure. That's a very Mark response, yeah.
Of course it is. I don't really believe that. But the list, there's a list as long as your arm of blind humans who have literally taught themselves echolocation, and it's something that with dedication anyone can learn to do, and it, you know, you can see in ECGs the areas of the brain that are doing this stuff, that are doing the echolocation, and they light up differently in an echolocation expert to somebody who, you know, to a control participant. It's something that is provable, categorically provable, that lights up different parts of your brain. You can teach yourself new senses.
Yeah, that is wild. I mean,
very cool.
Also, I would say I don't know that they're like new senses, but just spins on the ones we already have, but maybe new forms of perception of certain senses, you know, and that's fascinating to me. I mean, I remember there was a point where I was like, can I like do that? I was trying to like hear clicks and stuff like that. Like if I click at stuff, can I hear it? It reminded me of when I was a little kid and, you know, I discovered my own echo.
Yes, really cool.
And like trying to interact with that and be like, wow, that's fascinating.
I don't know if I've talked about this on the cast before, but that's something every day that never ever ceases to make me pause and go, whoa, cool, is the sensation. And I hope I'm not just talking through my ass here. I'm hoping that other people can relate to this. When maybe you're walking outdoors, you're walking out and about, and maybe kind of half a kilometer away, you'll see people playing a ball game or something, and somebody gives a ball a good kick, but the sound of the kick takes like the fraction of a second to reach your ear. There's this tiny dissonance between the action and the sound registering in your ear. And in that kind of fraction of a second, you become totally aware of the fact that sound is traveling to you from another place via vibration of the air. And all of a sudden you feel the world turning under your feet and you realize, oh my God, this is amazing. Just one of those things.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
It might further entertain you to know that while reading about human echolocation, I turned all the lights out in my living room and tried clicking a little bit, and I can't do it yet. Can't do it yet. But
yet. I can't cross my eyes. You can't echolocate. We'll both figure this out.
I'm far more likely to try and get my bank card inserted under my forehead or something like that.
Low effort extrasensory perception.
Look, guys, I'm a cyborg.